the most important part of goal setting actually comes before you set the goals. Today's episode is an absolute must for all entrepreneurs because we need to set goals for next year. Now, whether you're setting them now, maybe you just set them, or you are a January planner, make sure that you save this episode because we're going to be cover the most important things that go into goal setting, because those things actually come before you set the goals. It's actually quite easy to be like, hey, these are the things I need to achieve next year. But what happens is that most business owners are missing the bigger picture. And that is typically why your goals will go off the rails, you don't hit the goals, your confidence takes a hit. So if you've ever felt any of those from last year or the years prior, this episode is for you. Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I'm Samantha Fackler, your host, business mentor, brand strategist, and someone who believes that building a business is one of the most spiritual journeys you can take. I am here to help you grow your business through proven strategies and aligned practices, so ultimately you can make more money while being in a state of ease. If you're stuck on something in your business, a marketing question, a messy offer, or you just need someone to help you think clearly, then a deep dive coaching session is for you. It's a one-time 60-minute call where you and I get to the root of what is not working and map out exactly what you need to do next. This is your chance to get the perspective of someone outside of your business who can see the whole system a bit more clearly. So if you'd like to book one of those with me, there are just a few open this month, and the link is in the show notes. It is my intention with today's episode that you get some hot takes on things you have not heard before, because I am goals. I'm a Capricorn. My entire sign is about goal setting. And I am someone who has set goals for myself every single year since I was probably 16. I take it really seriously. I've studied goal setting and I've done it in my personal and professional life. And I think as a business owner, it's an area where I feel really, really confident. And I've also done so much work around how to set really successful goals that push you forward enough, but aren't completely out of reach, that I'm breaking down kind of my experimental takes that have proved to be really successful in my business as well as my clients' businesses. So let's get into it. We're going to quickly go over what you need to do before you set those goals, because if you skip these things, then your goals are trash. Like they actually need to be scrapped and you need to redo them. And then we're going to go over how goals kind of sandwich into other big things in your business, right? Your goals actually aren't your plans. Those are two very separate things. Your goals are not your strategies. Those are different things. Your goals, they aren't your vision. That's something different too. So we're going to break down what are these different pieces and how do they all thread together. And I promise you by the end of today's episode, you're going to feel like, holy moly, I just got a masterclass in how to direct the future of my business. We are also going to go over a few of my favorite little affirmations with goals. And I'll tell you one of them right now, which is goals are devotions. They are not demands. And I think, I don't know about you, but the feminine side of me actually resists goal setting simply because of the words. It feels like work, it feels rigid, it feels analytical. And I promise you that today's episode, we're going to find kind of this sweet spot where we're taking advantage of things like systems and frameworks, but we are doing so in a way that feels really authentic, true to us, true to what we're building, and connected to a greater purpose, as well as profit, because I am someone who needs both in business. And it's my guess that probably you are too. So with that, the things that you need to do before setting goals. Number one is get yourself regulated. When I say regulated, I mean get yourself grounded. Clear your mind. Go take a walk outside. Do what you need to do to be in a calm and steady state. This is so important because too many business owners rush goal setting. They say, hey, I have this 30-minute slot on my calendar and that's when I'm going to set my goals. No, 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 no. I view goal setting as a sacred act because you are setting very important target points in your business that you are going to be directing so much energy and momentum to. And if those target points are off or misplaced, suddenly you've wasted a ton of time and energy. So we need to make sure that those are placed correctly. And if you are in fight or flight, if you're stressed, if you're trying to rush the process, chances are you're going to misplace those targets. So when you're in a calm and steady state, you can think bigger, you can think more clearly, and that's going to be so important for these practices today. Vision, goals, plans, the whole shebang. So, second is you need to know your numbers. And this is not a sexy one, but it is so important and it feels so good once you do it. Go sit with your bookkeeper or finish your bookkeeping for the year. Look at how much revenue came in. What's your profit? What were your marketing costs relative to the revenue that they brought in? Look at these key things as well as how much are you paying your team? How much do you spend on different things in the business? How many, what are the different revenue streams that came into your business? If you don't know these things, you cannot set SMART goals. You're going to be guessing. And those goals are going to be like throwing a dart blindfolded. And then all of a sudden you're directing your efforts every single day for the next 365 days towards something that's a shot in the dark. So know your numbers, okay? With that, the third is, I think, the most important, and it is the most fun for me personally, which is you need to feel into your year and you need to take into consideration a few things. One is your personal life. Like, what do you have going on in your life? Do you have something major? Are you getting married? Do you plan on buying a house? Do you plan on having kids? Do you plan on a huge 2-month sabbatical type trip or working from Europe for the summer? Like, what are these big things happening? Or maybe it's a year where you have 8 different weddings, or your kid is graduating from high school. Like, no matter what is going on in your life, check in, because those are huge shifts in your identity. And some of those transitions might, take a lot of your energy or might give you energy back. So that is the first thing. You need to check in with what is happening in your life calendar. And then 2, I highly recommend looking at your astrological transits. What is happening astrology wise, and then how does it affect you? We will have an episode coming out around New Year's that talks about all these different transits, but you can also always have a reading with an astrologer and look up how are things going to be affecting you personally. This has been such a game changer in my own business. And for the last 2 years, I have planned my world around astrology, and it has been incredible. Things have actually flowed, and I've known ahead of time, hey, this month is going to be a slow season, or these couple months are going to be really, really busy. And last year, I knew when I would have busy seasons, and then I was able to structure my life around those. I was able to go into, I knew February and March were going to be really busy. I knew September, October were going to be really busy. And I was able to not overwhelm myself. When people asked to hang out late September, I was like, hey, I'm going to be in a busy season in work. Let's look at it this other time. And did I have to say, oh, my astrology said this, and so I can't meet because, the moon is in Aries and yada, yada, yada? No, I don't have to break that down. But it's just a great tool for you when you're looking at, hey, what's going to be happening this next year and how can I adapt to it in the most seamless way? And then the third, which is kind of a newer one for me, I used this one a few years ago, but I want to start bringing it back into play, and that's numerology. Numerology is something we haven't really talked about much on the podcast, but what I have seen is that people tend to have a number for each year. So it goes in a cycle of 9. So if you have a year that's, let's say, a 9 year, it means there's probably going to be a lot of things being wrapped up in that. And then the next year kind of sets a new 9-year cycle for yourself. And again, numerology, it's about energy and it's about cycles. And so that's why I'm personally drawn to it. If it's new for you, just check it out, explore, take what resonates, leave the rest. But looking at what does this year mean to you? What might be things that are shifting in your identity? Or maybe it's a year that's kind of like a coasting year. Or maybe it's a year where you're going to be more introspective or creative. And sometimes just knowing the big picture from a numerology perspective can actually be really helpful as you take that into consideration with all of your planning. The other huge thing you need to do before you set goals is you need to know your vision. And when I say vision, I don't mean like what's the big picture that you're going to try and achieve next year. I mean, what is that huge, juicy vision that scares you that is timeless? It is not bound to a specific time or day. It is, hey, this is what I see. This is why I am building. And this is the ultimate vision that I would like to achieve one day. And when I get there, I know I have climbed the mountaintop and I'm on top looking around me, probably going to decide what's the next mountain that I want to climb. If you do not have a healthy vision that is clear, then that's really going to prevent you from creating goals for the next year that ladder up to that vision. Because if you don't have anything to ladder up to, then you're probably just going to be coasting. You're really not going to be taking advantage or building momentum towards something bigger. And I know certain people are scared to create a vision. They feel like, but what if I create something that is too small or too big, or that it never happens? And sometimes it's not even about the vision being realized, but it's holding the bigger picture that is a good snapshot from what you want from now. That vision can change from time to time. And I've led offsites for companies all over the world where we talk about this, where the vision might shift slightly based on what you learned that year. But that's okay because you still have this ultimate goal in mind. And yes, I do think a vision is like an ultimate goal. It's almost like there's nothing past it because once you get there, you set a new vision. And as a CEO, that is your job. Your job is to continually refine the vision because each year you're creating traction and you're making progress on that vision you set. And so you need to continue the runway ahead of yourself and continue pushing it and shaping it. So don't be afraid to set a vision and let yourself dream really big. Now, in terms of tackling this, literally dream. Like take yourself out of your day to day, go somewhere else, and really start to think bigger. And I personally like to be in big, beautiful spaces for this, whether it's in nature or taking myself to a sacred site or a really incredible library with like huge ceilings, somewhere that I'm going to feel inspired. And then let yourself just be in that. Like vision setting, vision casting, whatever you want to call it, it needs to be in that bigger thinking space. It's really the opportunity for you to bring forward your most bold self. And maybe you even call on a younger part of you from like your 20s who is really like bold and maybe even brash. Like let her come through. Like what does she want? What does she foresee? Because sometimes we need to actually move our fears and doubts out of the way for the vision to come through. Once you have that vision, amazing. Write it down, remember it, revisit it in a year. Next, we actually get to the goals. And yeah, I know that's a lot of work to do before goals, but think of it as play, think of it as alignment, think of it as this like energetic cleansing that you can do that ensures that the goal setting stuff is here to stay. And it actually makes it really easy because what I find is that when you do all these things, your goals naturally unfold. It's almost like, duh, these are my goals. Of course, they're my goals because this is where I'm at today and these are my numbers and this is the big vision. And so now we're talking about, well, how do we get there? And what I find with people is that they're setting their goals too big. And then what happens, and I really, really hate this. I'm like cringing inside as I say this. A lot of people set their goals too big. They're like, I'm going to quantum leap in 3 months and I'm going to make 300K more, even though I'm only making 50K now, and it's going to be awesome. And guess what? That actually never happens. It's very rare, and you wouldn't want that kind of growth to happen because you would not be able to hold it. And I have seen so many people and businesses collapse because they do have that quantum leap moment and they grow way too big, way too fast. And then all of a sudden, it's like they're at worse than square one. So that is the beauty of goals, is that they give us this really gorgeous scaffolding that we get to grow into over time. And I think it's so important to understand that and be okay with that sustainable growth, knowing that maybe you have a year where you don't grow that much. Maybe the next year you still grow, but then all of a sudden you do maybe have a quarter where you feel like, wow, growth is like really going up. Maybe something goes viral, your audience doubles or triples, but still it's not like you're going from 1,000 followers to 1,000,000. Like that almost never happens. And even if that did happen, you can imagine you would probably collapse underneath it because you would go from crickets to an onslaught of messages and emails that you could not keep up with. And you don't have the team or structure or systems in place to deal with that change and growth. So for me, it is all about sustainable goal setting while keeping that vision really huge and juicy. And again, not tying it to time. I think that's the secret sauce and really getting to where you want to go. Because if you're trying to like quote quantum leap, which I think is absolute bullshit, you're going to collapse. It's not going to work. Like I do not believe in quantum leaps, because quantum and the quantum leap specifically means that you're going from one place to another and there's no in between. But that does not exist for humans. We live in a moment to moment world. That is our reality. That is the 3D around us. And no matter where we're going, there's always going to be a moment before. There's always going to be an in between. Even if you do have a huge quarter, that's incredible, but it wasn't built on nothing. It didn't come out of air. It's not made of magic. You made that happen with all of the steps and time and things that went into building up to that moment. And so I think we need to eradicate this sense of quantum leap, because when we talk about goals and growth, that realistic curve is actually how it happens. Okay, now I know I got real hot and bothered right there because I'm just so sick and tired of that narrative online. Because I think, like, yes, you can have a huge year and grow a lot, but it's never out of nowhere. So let's say you're like, I have an idea of my goals and these are the things that I want to achieve. If I can do these next year, I get just a little bit closer to that vision. I know my numbers, so I know that these are kind of realistic targets that push me a bit, but don't feel completely out of bounds. Because if goals are completely out of bounds, then our confidence takes a hit, our energy takes a hit, we start doubting. And then I see this all the time, but then I see people start to kind of like their wheels kind of come off. They get loose and they fly off the car, and then it feels like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? We want to prevent that. So let's say you have figured out this kind of like these sustainable target points for you and your business. They feel good. They're connected to everything. Now I want you to check the purpose of those goals. Why did you set them? And then ask yourself, is there anything else that you could do to achieve those besides what you wrote down? Because here is also what I notice. When we're setting goals, we are pulling from our conscious mind and what we know works. But we don't know what we don't know. And I think it's sometimes healthy to ask ourselves, hey, might there be another way of doing this? And that's something that has been so helpful for me, because building a business in the online space, as someone who comes from the corporate world where there's so much more involved, is that when I became an entrepreneur fully, I noticed that this world is completely different and that people do certain things to achieve certain goals, whether that's revenue or impact or audience, whatever it may be. But that means I'm just copying based on what other people have done. But what if there was another way? What if there was a different format? What if there was something new that you could try that would get you to that goal? And so I think this is such a healthy lens to just try on, because you might stumble upon something really new and fresh that feels so much better for your business. And I think that's another piece here, is that when you're setting goals, do they feel good to you? Do they feel like you, or do they feel like something you're writing down because you think you should do them? And there's a really grave distinction between those two. So I also think that people set too many goals. I think you should set 1 to 2 goals per quarter and have one big goal for the year. Now, when I think about like the size of goal setting and how ambitious we want to be, it's like the farther out the goal, the bigger we want it to be. The more near term the goal is, the more realistic we want to be. So Q1, I am setting goals that I think like about 80% I can achieve. So that pushes me a little bit, but I know that I'm going to make at least most of it, whether it's profit, audience growth, whatever the goal might be, because that is how I have seen really healthy, achievable goals be set that push you forward, but keep you in check. And the bigger goals, like the year goal, that can be a little bit bigger. And I think it's Bill Gates who says, like, we overestimate what we can do in a day and we underestimate what we can do in a year. And so, again, this feeds into that, right? How many days have you said, I'm going to do all these things, and then you get a fraction done? Because that happens to me all the time. But when it comes to what we can do in a year, it's actually incredible the amount of momentum and traction we can generate. So we've pretty much covered goals. I'm going to move to the next one, which is planning. And I'm not going to give you a ton with planning because I could probably do a whole series on planning. But this is really breaking down that goal and saying, what are the key drivers that are going to make that goal come to fruition? So if my goal was, I don't know, triple the revenue of a program that I'm running, I think, okay, well, if I'm tripling the revenue, what in the program needs to happen so that I can reach that? So how many people would I need to enlist and at what price points? Okay, if I need to fill that many seats for the program, how big does my email list need to be? Or how big does my campaign need to be in order to fill those? So it's working backwards from the goal, backing your way into the plan. And I think that's a really fun way to figure out, okay, then what are my priorities based on that? And as you can see here, there's this really large framework we've just gone through, right? It starts with this huge, juicy vision. Then you move down to these goals that you set, these target points for yourself throughout the year, for the year ahead. Maybe you set some for 3 to 5 years down the line, depending on how planny you want to get. Once you have those goals, then you get into your plans. Another word for plans would also be strategies. So what are you doing to ensure that you win and you hit those goals? And those plans, within those, you have priorities that are going to help you focus your energy so that you can execute those plans, so that you can hit those goals, so that you can ladder up to that bigger vision and move your way towards it. Okay, we talked about so many different things today. A few reminders: goals are devotions, not demands. They are these things where we are saying, hey, we're committed to this. We're showing up. We're showing up for this why, for this purpose of the goal, the bigger why of our business. And maybe that why next year is profit and you want to make more money. Maybe that why is impact and you want to see a certain reality shift. Whatever it may be, the more that you know around this stuff, the more successful you're going to be. And I think ultimately that's why we set goals, is to orient ourselves, to give ourselves permission that we can do this. Yes, we can make our way towards this bigger vision. And this is how it's going to happen. And then, of course, every quarter, this is just kind of a last throw-in recommendation. Check in with yourself every quarter and see, how are things tracking? Do things feel realistic? Did something come up out of nowhere? And then you can reorient from there. Because again, goals are also our orientation, right? They're directing all our energy and time, our team, etc. So I hope today gave you a fresh perspective on goal setting, as well as really detailing that bigger vision of your business, the plans day to day that will go into all this stuff, and how these things all connect together so that you get to where you want to go. Thank you for being here. I am your host, Samantha Fackler. You can find me on Instagram at samantha.fackler. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. With that, I'll catch you next time.